If men were angels, no government would be necessary. The advancement and diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty. The circulation of confidence is better than the circulation of money. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power which knowledge gives. No nation could preserve its freedom in the midst of continual warfare. A popular government without popular information, or the means of acquiring it, is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy, or perhaps both. What is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature? Philosophy is common sense with big words. The essence of government is power, and power, lodged as it must be in human hands, will ever be liable to abuse. It is a universal truth that the loss of liberty at home is to be charged to the provisions against danger, real or pretended, from abroad. The truth is that all men having power ought to be mistrusted. Where an excess of power prevails, property of no sort is duly respected. No man is safe in his opinions, his person, his faculties, or his possessions. We are right to take alarm at the first experiment upon our liberties. If tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. I believe there are more instances of the abridgment of freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments by those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations. Liberty may be endangered by the abuse of liberty, but also by the abuse of power. It will be of little avail to the people that the laws are made by men of their own choice, if the laws be so voluminous that they cannot be read, or so incoherent that they cannot be understood. In republics, the great danger is that the majority may not sufficiently respect the rights of the minority. Charity is no part of the legislative duty of the government. The people are the only legitimate fountain of power, and it is from them that the constitutional charter, under which the several branches of government hold their power, is derived. Religion flourishes in greater purity, without than with the aid of government. To suppose that any form of government will secure liberty or happiness without any virtue in the people is a chimerical idea. A well-instructed people alone can be permanently a free people. As long as the reason of man continues fallible, and he is at liberty to exercise it, different opinions will be formed. The happy union of these states is a wonder, their constitution a miracle, their example the hope of liberty throughout the world. Ambition must be made to counteract ambition. The capacity of the female mind for studies of the highest order cannot be doubted, having been sufficiently illustrated by its works of genius, of erudition, and of science. A pure democracy is a society consisting of a small number of citizens who assemble and administer the government in person. The operations of the federal government will be most extensive and important in times of war and danger, those of the state governments in times of peace and security. Wherever there is interest and power to do wrong, wrong will generally be done. There are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations. A well-regulated militia, composed of the body of the people, trained in arms, is the best, most natural defense of a free country. Each generation should be made to bear the burden of its own wars, instead of carrying them on at the expense of other generations. A man has a property in his opinions and the free communication of them. As a man is said to have a right to his property, he may be equally said to have a property in his rights. Americans have the right and advantage of being armed, unlike the citizens of other countries whose governments are afraid to trust the people with arms. The internal effects of a mutable policy poisons the blessings of liberty itself. War contains so much folly, as well as wickedness, that much is to be hoped from the progress of reason. The rights of persons and the rights of property are the objects for the protection of which government was instituted. The means of defense against foreign danger historically have become the instruments of tyranny at home. The purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe with blood for centuries. Let me recommend the best medicine in the world, a long journey at a mild season through a pleasant country in easy stages. Union of religious sentiments begets a surprising confidence. Religious bondage shackles and debilitates the mind, and unfits it for every noble enterprise, every expanded prospect. History records that the money changers have used every form of abuse, intrigue, deceit, and violent means possible to maintain their control over governments by controlling money and its issuance.